All right, we are back. Welcome for episode 3 of the NY Boston Sports Podcast. There's Kieran with Kurt and Rah. This is, definitely less than half an hour off the Celtics Warriors game 3. The Celtics win. I believe the final score was 116-100.
Hey.
Celtics are up 2-1. We will touch on that. We will touch on the Rangers. We will begin today our 30 and 30 episodes. We're 32 and 32 episodes. We're trying to break down win totals for each team. We'll start with who are the number one pick. We'll go down, but I think we need to get the instant reaction from the Celtics fan in the group. So, Kurt, just tell us what you thought of this game, and then we'll really build off from there.
Well, I've as I told you guys before, I have a couple of notes for each player.
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna kind of go down the list a little bit. I am feeling good as hell after that game. We'll get into a little bit about the third quarters that the Celtics have every single time, where the Warriors just blow them out. But I thought, first of all, for Marcus Smart, he was really good. He was good tonight. He made a lot of great hustle plays. He had I felt like it was a quiet 20 points.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because they mentioned he had 20, and I was like, when the hell did he get there?
Yeah.
But he did hit a couple of big threes. I don't know if you guys saw that bank shot that somehow went in. Yeah. That was a beauty.
Didn't he hit that bank shot also from almost half court in the season opening game against the Knicks?
He did.
Yeah, he did. He sent it to OT.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I feel like a fake fan. I don't remember that, but for Tatum, I thought he started out really slow. He got it together a little bit, but a ton of missed layups that just were uncharacteristic of him. But I think also he's doing enough to get them wins, and the playmaking, he has stepped up big time. So many times tonight he drove, got doubled, had someone help off, and he threw an absolute bullet across the court for an open three, or a kick and then a drive. Let's see, Jaylen Brown, he was also excellent, but all I'm gonna say on that note, he is a fucking first quarter hero, bro. Every single time he just comes out of the gate firing, and I swear he always makes his first 4 or 5 shots and then just kind of disappears for a stretch.
It's like Devin Booker.
Yeah, no, that's a solid comparison.
Yeah.
Let's see. Al Horford, he was very efficient from the floor tonight. He got a lot of things to go. I thought he stepped up the aggressiveness from game 2, which was big. Because he just looked so timid in that game too. He didn't want to put anything up. But he got some shots up tonight and hit them. The one thing about him that I noticed, he kept falling victim to the Warriors screens on defense though. He would drop back way too far and just leave Steph or Clay wide open for a 3. There was 1 or 2 times where they just set a double screen off the top, and Horford got caught sagging way back to the 3-point line, giving Curry 10 feet of space, which is not a recipe for success, as I'm sure all of you know.
Yeah.
Just keeping it rolling, Rob Williams. He was excellent tonight. I thought he looked healthier than he has in weeks, if not, a month. He looked springy as hell, had a ton of big blocks, couple of big dunks. And then to kind of round out the Celtics here, I thought Grant Williams played a huge role tonight. Altogether, they just looked more physical than the Warriors. They grabbed a ton of offensive rebounds, made all the shots inside for the Warriors difficult, made the shots outside for the most part difficult, but obviously you saw Clay take a step forward from the first 2 games as well. Still wasn't his best night shooting, but Um, it was to the point tonight where through certainly several stretches, I was worried that every single shot the Warriors took was going to go in. So that's never a good feeling, but had me on my toes. What else do you guys have to say?
I thought a really key stretch to the game was mid-second quarter. It looked like the Warriors were going to go on a run, and especially with there were a couple of really bad turnovers the C's had, but then they closed out the half really well, and they were up double digits. I don't remember exactly how many, but they were up double digits going into the half, and I thought that was really huge because you know that with the Warriors, like, you're not going to win the third quarter. Like, yes, the Celtics need to play better than they have been in the third quarter. They can't keep getting annihilated in the third quarter like they have been. But the fact that they built that lead for themselves going in, gave themselves some wiggle room, I thought that was huge. There's one sequence in particular, I took a note of it. It was around 7 minutes in the second quarter where Marcus Smart, he made a really bad turnover.
Was it the one where he just chucked it behind his head?
Yes, I think it was that
one. That one was brutal.
That one was bad, and it led to an easy Warriors bucket. But then Tatum came down and hit a three. And I thought that was really different because game two, it felt like whenever the Warriors were going on a run, the Celtics would aid them. But I thought the Celtics came out and, you know, they seemed to realize how important that, you know, late second quarter was. Because if you're up 5 in the second half versus going into halftime versus the Warriors, you might as well be down. So the fact that they, you know, really extended the lead so the Warriors could afford to go on a run. Again, like, if you're the Celtics, you want to limit those, but you also have to be realistic. And then I thought it was crazy how their coach just there were big stretches where against the Warriors they left Horford and Williams in. They played a traditional, you know, even bigger than traditional lineup, and it seemed to work out. So kind of countering the small ball lineup with a big ball lineup, which not many people have done. And late into the fourth quarter, like, clearly this is what the Celtics believe is going to win them the series. So that's what really stuck out to me. You know, Tatum played well. Robert Williams had 5 blocks, and you could just see the difference, right? And if the Warriors they're afraid, if you know they're not going to really try to shoot a layup on Robert Williams, the drive and kick is a lot less deadly. And that's the key with Williams being in there. So that's what I took away from the game. The Celtics now up 2-1. Huge win for them. Rod, did you go with the Dubs or the C's tonight?
I went with the Celtics.
Okay. Word. So we were all on the C's. We all cashed out there.
Yeah.
What did you think of the game tonight?
I thought the Celtics played very well, especially in the fourth quarter. One thing in this series, the Celtics, they pretty dominated the fourth quarter in 2 out of the first 3 games. So that definitely is a positive thing in the Celtics' favor. But really the main thing is we really have to start talking about Draymond Green because he's hurt the Warriors way more than he's helped them. It's been that way.
Draymond Green.
But, like, yeah, it's honestly been that way for longer than people would like to really see. Like, multiple years now, I feel like he has been a team that has hurt the Warriors more, especially since he doesn't have any offense anymore.
So, like, I'm going to push back a little bit there. He definitely hasn't hurt the Warriors more than he's helped them. However, like, Draymond is such an interesting – he might be the most interesting, like, conversation in the modern NBA history, in what his legacy on the game is, like, how you view him, because you can't ignore, like, I like Draymond, and he facilitates the Warriors, like, really well. He got drafted into the ideal situation, but, like, Draymond is a thing where it's all about where you get drafted too. And it's also like the bottom line is you cannot ignore the fact that the 1 year Draymond had to really carry the load on his shoulders. They won like 10 games. So he's not going to carry you to a chip, but he is a key piece in that Warriors offense. And Marcus Smart, like, made some really dumb turnovers that Draymond wouldn't have made. So if we're still I don't think tonight settled the Smart versus Draymond debate. Like, I think you guys seem to be a little harder on that than me. Like, there were some times where the Warriors just missed some transition threes that really could have killed them. I don't know. I'll pass it on to Kurt. What do you think about this?
Well, I think a lot of good points have been brought up, but specifically on Draymond. First of all, I just wanted to say he's a pussy-ass bitch, and he played a terrible-ass game.
He did.
And I could not be more happy to see it. And I think on the note of Smart versus him, I think it's honestly easy. I agree with Rory more than you here,
All right.
which I guess might be a hot take. But you look at his stats today, I think it was 2 points, 3 or 4 rebounds, 3 or 4 assists.
No, it was a terrible game.
It was awful. And I know that's not typically what you get from Draymond, but he is a liability on the offensive end, especially when he's not playmaking at his best. Because you look at him out there, he gets a wide open 3.
Yeah.
We could not be more happy with him taking a wide open 3 on us. He is just one of the biggest bricks ever. And I think too, I think he's gonna be a Hall of Famer. I think it's up for debate whether or not he should be a Hall of Famer. And I think his defensive impact and his legacy with the Warriors has obviously been great. But I just think at this point, you know, he has no offensive game. And his defensive game, I don't think is as good as Marcus Smart's at this point either. So I'm taking Marcus Smart in 4.
I think another thing that stood out is that there were some times too where the Celtics seemed to even be forcing him to his natural hand to drive. Like, they want him to even drive. Like, there were some times where I looked and it's like he could have just driven for a layup there. And it's almost like he needs to, like, if you get Draymond in like the high post or the post and he's facilitating, he's deadly. But it seems like he might be a little shaky in situations outside of his ideal spot. And in the finals, especially against the coach as good as the Celtics have, you know, that might be a problem. And we'll see what he has to say on his podcast tomorrow. We'll see how he defends himself.
He should be focusing on the finals, not his fucking podcast, man.
Yeah.
If I was playing in the finals, I wouldn't be filming this right now. Sorry, boys.
We understand, but the Warriors, like, we'll see. There's still game 4, and how urgent do you think? Like, are you gonna throw, Kurt, as a Celtics fan? Are you still throwing must win at game 4? Like, what how would you describe game 4?
I wouldn't say that it's must win because I think we could definitely still win a 2-2 series, you know, best of 3. But I think it would be absolutely massive. And if we win that game, I am confident as hell that we win the series. Only having to either steal one at Chase or win one at home. I mean, I could not be more ecstatic if we went up 3-1.
Okay. That's probably what most C's fans. Yeah, Robert Williams, though, he is going to win deploy at some point. I think the impact he makes on the game, even in a team like the Warriors, that like the drive and kick, you've seen it happen so many times. But Robert Williams really does throw that off. I mean, he had 4 or 5 blocks tonight.
I think he had 4. He might have gotten up to 5 though. But I think he's special, man. And I mean, obviously, I feel like sometimes I can definitely come across as Celtics bias, and maybe I am, but I feel like he's really as close to a do-it-all big as you can. Maybe he can't shoot, but he plays lockdown defense. he's fast enough to guard guys on the perimeter. And on that note, I think he's blocked more 3-point shots than I've seen anyone in their career, or not in career, but like anyone throughout the course of a season. I think the one big question, I agree that he absolutely will win a depoy, but if he stays healthy, because throughout his whole career now, he's had all those injury concerns.
That's a legitimate and definitely concern. I don't want to see the post-game press conferences are going on right now. I just got an alert from ESPN that a reporter questioned Draymond if he gave up too much information on his podcast.
That's what I'm saying, man.
he was pretty tight. He said he was reaching, which he definitely was. I mean, I watched all of I really appreciate. I really do appreciate that Draymond is taking the time to give us his analysis of these games. No matter how you feel about him, that's valuable analysis. And he
valuable to the Celtics.
Yeah, but I feel like there definitely wasn't it's not like there's something Brad Stevens was like watching Draymond's podcast like, oh, we got him now.
You got to use your resources, right?
Exactly,
that's true.
Someone in the Celtics organization watched that.
They definitely
Hundo P. They paid an intern to watch that. Hundo P.
Yeah.
Like a sophomore in college. They definitely paid.
Yeah, he wrote up some notes. He forwarded them.
He took the
all
best
of the key
notes,
players.
And he took the best notes of his life.
Some Harvard kid did it.
Finals MVP to the Celtics intern.
Yes.
Yeah.
to Mike Johnson. Yeah. So if there's anything else, I mean, game 4 is Friday, I believe, right? That'll be in the Garden. Should be if it's 2-2, we're still chilling. If it's 3-1, I'm Rory, are you willing to say game 4 is a must win for the Warriors? It's not that controversial because they'd be going down 3-1, but do you think they're must win?
I don't think there's any. I'm sorry to cut you off, Rory. You can go right back into it. But personally, I do not think there's any chance the Warriors would rattle off 3 in a row against as good of a defensive team as the Celtics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's like it's as close to a must win, but I think still because the Warriors, I'll give them more benefit that they can come back from other teams. But yeah, it's basically a must win.
Especially with how it's going right now, I would say. All right, so now we've
can I touch on just like 2 more things?
Yeah, I got you.
I just wanted to point out some keys to the series so far.
Yeah.
For the Celtics against the Warriors, it's really been like a big difference in physicality, I think. And I think in the second game too, you saw the Warriors punch back a little, but in this game you saw too, they were just outsized, outmatched on that, in the paint, inside the arc, everything. Robert Williams was owning the paint, and you just see the Warriors running all these lineups like Kieran said earlier, where Draymond's really your biggest guy. And there were multiple times tonight where Rob Williams made Draymond look too small. He just jumped over the top of him and grabbed a board. I think the Celtics had over 15 offensive boards. They were coming in bunches. So I think that's a huge key, and that could be a big difference in the series. Other than that, for the Warriors, I think a huge key has been the third quarter runs, clearly, because I saw the stat flash up on the screen during the game.
Yeah.
But their plus minus in those third quarters, they were like a plus 45 after tonight or something like that. And then the rest of the quarters combined, they were minus more than that, a ton.
Yeah. No, it was ridiculous.
So that's huge. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on, which was a massive key to this game, the Warriors shooting in the third quarter compared to the fourth. They were obviously coming out firing in the third. Steph was unconscious. And then in the fourth quarter, I don't know if you've seen the shooting stats, either of you, but the Celtics held them to 33% shooting and 11% from three.
Yeah.
So obviously the Warriors are going to need to do more down the stretch if they want to get wins in this series.
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback off that Draymond thing. There were a couple times where the Warriors and specifically Draymond just got mossed. I mean, it really looked like throwing a jump ball to the biggest receiver, Calvin Johnson, Randy Moss type shit. That's really what it looked like. And the Warriors' third quarter runs, I mean, it's insane, but it's almost like a given. Like you almost factor it into your game plan if you're planning the Warriors. So
I don't
know,
really understand it though. Do you have a better explanation than I have for why they always go on these third quarter runs?
Like I don't know. Like
Nobody
is it just halftime adjustments
No,
from
it
Kerr?
was-
Like
No, yeah, I mean maybe, but like there's not some more. Maybe Steve Kerr gave such a memorable speech in like 2015 that like there's, but I don't know. I really.
what do you think he said?
I don't know what he said really, but he was.
What
Probably,
would you say, Rah?
What would I say? I'd be like,
right, go Ram mode right now.
Hey, listen, man. I was on championship teams with Michael Jordan, man. The third quarter was the most important, man. And yeah, would it involve gambling? Yeah, but it worked. We'll do the same thing here. Or else Michael kicked me. He would have kicked me off the team if we had performed the third quarter.
There.
And that is a summary of Steve Kerr's halftime speech for all of you out there.
Yeah, so he just
This
goes.
is the content you get on this podcast.
Very true. All right, so we're gonna swing it over now. We've definitely given the Celtics their due. They are in the finals. Unfortunately, the New York Rangers are down.
Tied.
Yeah, the series is tied.
Oh no, they're tied. My bad. But they dropped the last two. I honestly felt like I'm gonna like go on. Like I'm gonna let you really take the reins here in a couple seconds. But from an outsider's perspective, this felt like a really bad spot for the Rangers. It felt like the Lightning won because like game 3 was really close. You smoked them in game 1, right? You smoked them in game 1, right?
6-2, yeah. And then
Yeah,
game
you
two.
smoked them in
Game
game
2, we won.
Game 2, you won at home. Game 3, like if you guys lose this series, game 3 is going to be the one that haunts you forever.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, but it felt like and you said this series was going to go 7. One of the games the Lightning were going to steamroll you guys. And it felt like going in that this was the game.
Oh yeah, you sort of knew like maybe like.
But Rao, I'm going to sauce it over to you because you're the Ranger guy. Like where are you headed? What are your reactions to the game? What's good?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was just a horrible game for the Rangers. There's really not a lot to say. I mean, it was just we just got dominated. They just looked like such the better team. Vasilevsky has found his game, which he knew he would have. And we really didn't get much pressure, really. It sort of was feeling like a game where I don't know. It just nothing really went right. There was this moment in the game where the goal horn went off when a Lightning player missed the net by like 10 feet. I don't know why. That guy just it's like why? No, it was like it was very confusing. But Igor didn't even play badly, but a lot of the goals were it's not like our defense was bad though, but just yeah. I want to talk about Artemi Panarin because he has not really been that great. He had a horrible game, just turning the puck over. He almost looked lost, and he hasn't been the same player he was. I feel like the overtime goal that he scored against Pittsburgh saved his legacy because he was awful that game and awful that series. If Pittsburgh wins that game, we're having a deep conversation about his legacy so far in New York. And I think this is the game where he has to, because we've dealt with injuries. Strome, I don't think he's coming back. Hedel left game 4. And that's a huge loss because if Hedel's gone, then the kid line's broken up. And they have been our best line by far this playoff. So it's on number 10. Like, he can't just sort of skate by. This is a game where he has to take over. This is where he has to be the Artemi Panarin that we have seen for 3 seasons now in New York. He has to be that. He has to lead the way. Because if he doesn't, I don't think we're winning. And if we don't win game 5, I don't see us winning in game 6 in Tampa.
Okay, so you got to get Panarin going. Do you think there's much more to take away from that game, or is it more of just a throwaway?
There, like it definitely, I wouldn't quite say this is a throwaway. It was, we just sort of looked like lost really. And Ryan Reeves, I'm not really sure. Gallant has way too much faith in the fourth line and Reeves. He needs to. I would not be opposed to bench him at this point.
That's interesting. The main enforcer of the team.
Yeah, because this is what you get with Ryan Reeves. Just you get the good, but you sort of saw it in Vegas last year when he he has those games where he just commits very stupid penalties, and he had that. And Gallant has put way too much faith in him. In my opinion, it's getting to the point where it's sort of been hurting the team, but not really.
I have a question to ask you. I think you sort of broke it down before, but just kind of go a little bit more in depth on how losing Chital and the other center, how does that impact the series?
Because those are our second and third centers, so the depth of the team would have it, and I think we have Kevin Maroney and Dryden Hunt, really, and Philip Hedel has scored basically in a very short amount of time. Has been maybe the biggest pleasant surprise of the postseason. He has turned into a guy. He scored 7 goals in this postseason. That's only 1 more than Connor McDavid did. So it's and he's just been, a player, maybe been our best forward, especially from round 2 on. And breaking down the kid line, the kid line has just been so good. They've been electric. So having that potentially broken up, and the thing, I don't trust Gerard Gallant on injury reports and all. It's the biggest issue I have with him. So many times he'll be like, "Yeah, I think he's good to go this game," and he'll be out for weeks. It's very annoying. So we just learned to just not trust it at all. So I don't know, but it would definitely be on the depth. Would hurt our depth a lot, and Strome, especially the 5-on-5 has been awful over the last 2 games, maybe even that. Because our 5-on-5 picked up, it was a huge problem at the beginning of the season. We were just relying on the power play to score. And then Drury addressed that with addressing guys like Andrew Kopp, Tyler Mott. But in the series against Tampa, especially, we haven't scored a 5-on-5 goal in 2 games. So you have to score 5-on-5. That's what it has to be. You can't just rely on a power play in the postseason when there's less calls. And that's what worries me, is that our 5-on-5 has been very bad. So without Strome and Hedel, with an already bad 5-on-5 play, it could be worse.
You see, as I've said before, I'm not the hugest hockey fan. I know Rory's mainly the hockey guy of the bunch. But so far from what I've seen, what I've heard, it seems like this series is going to come down to who can win on the road. And
if they'll only win game 5. I just think
yeah, exactly. I'm curious what you think about that. Who is more likely to win a game on the road? Is the Lightning's momentum after winning those last 2 going to play a role?
Yeah.
And if the Rangers, just a follow-up after that, if the Rangers do pull it off, will the Avalanche having so much rest going into the Stanley Cup play a role?
No, because Tampa Bay had 9 days rest. So it's just like I don't really think rest really like matters as much as people think. In fact, it could come down to hurt you. Like the Lightning looked very rusty in game 1. You can just tell, especially Vasilevsky, and we just took full advantage of it. They just came right out. And then also sort of it wasn't really until the last period of game 2 in which they really came back to being the Lightning. But now they had it. But I don't know what's gonna happen game 5. I can't give you a prediction. I can't really give you. This is one of those things where you just have no idea what's happening.
I'm not sensing a lot of confidence then.
Yeah, but we've done it before. We've been in this situation. Really. So it's
what
not
would you put? I think last time you said what, 60, 55%. Where's your confidence level right now?
50%. I think exactly there. Exactly a 5.
Yeah, 50%. I mean, listen, it's a best 2 out of 3 for the Stanley Cup. And at the end of the day, if
you had told me that at the beginning of the season, I would not have believed it. Like no one would have. Like I expected first round. I expected to make the playoffs, but I didn't expect to get past like the first round. And
what about Igor? How did he play game 4? And like, what's your faith level in Igor?
Oh, like I'm not worried about Igor. It's just like, why would you do this? Like,
not true.
He didn't play his best game, but he also was probably the reason why it wasn't more. But he had to overcome, because he started off in games 3 and 4 in Pittsburgh were horrible. He just had to have some playoff adversity. That was sort of like, okay, like this is the playoffs now. This is a completely different thing from the regular season. I can't just sort of I have to step my game. But ever since that, he has just been locked in. He has been the Igor Shesterkin of the regular season. But there's no reason to doubt him. Because if he was to be doubted, and you did have, then we would have lost in the first round. He would have just had another bad game in game 5, but he didn't. He battled back. It's now you start. You're gonna have games like that as a goalie, and he learned and he bounced back. So I'm not worried about him.
All right. So one more thing before we move off of hockey, Rah. You said you wanted to go on an Oilers rant. The floor is yours.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about the Oilers?
The Edmonton Oilers, man. I think they're in the same category as the Angels. That's just because here's the thing. One, they traded Wayne Gretzky, right? Because their owner was cheap. I don't know how you do that. And it's just and then on top of that, right? This is the thing. They had number 1 picks 3 years in a row, 2011, 2012, 2013. Only one of them, none of them are on the team now. And only one of them, Taylor Hall, even produced. Okay? And then 2 years later, they just get the next Gretzky and Connor McDavid. And they've only won 3 playoff series with them. We have won 3. No, you don't deserve it. What? I swear to God, bro, they better not get anybody ever again after Connor. If you have 3 number 1 picks in a row and are still not good, you should be banned from the lottery. That's just my thing. No, you've had your chances. Do it in free agency. Please. And there might be some Edmonton fans that it's just oh, well, just gonna maybe get offended. One, I don't really care. But 2, it's it's just the truth. That's the thing.
So he goes on.
You just had your chances at this point. Connor needs to leave. Draisaitl needs to leave. It's a 2-person team in Edmonton. You've had so long to build around them. It's
the Edmonton Connor McDavids.
That's really what they are.
Yeah, Connor's crazy, man.
Connor McDavid is the best player best athlete in the world in terms of the amount of level from him and everybody else. It's just not a debate. It's not even close. If you actually think that there's a player better than Connor McDavid in the NHL, you would just get laughed out any room. You would just get laughed at.
Does that include goalies?
I mean, yes, no, like it's just like I've never seen an athlete that was just so far ahead. Not even during LeBron's best year was he like this far ahead of everybody else. Like
Yeah,
it's just like crazy. Like we're really witnessing something that we've never seen before. He makes all these NHLers look like. I'm not gonna say he's better than Gretzky, but like if you put Connor in Gretzky's era, I think he kind of puts up the same numbers. Like you have, especially the goalies were worse, way worse than they are now.
So
Like
what
if Ray Gretzky played I'm not saying he still would be like the GOAT, but would he have the all-time points without scoring a goal if he played now? Like, I
Okay,
don't
I
think
have a
so.
question about that actually.
Yeah,
All-time talent level. Where do you put Connor McDavid on the list of hockey players?
top five, talent
Top
level,
five.
maybe even like top three, talent wise.
So it'd be him, Yager, and then McDavid, right? Gretzky, Yager, McDavid, right? Yager's. I mean, I
Yeah,
feel like
or
Yager's pretty
yeah,
conventional number two.
yeah.
Where's my boy Bobby Orr on that list?
I say he'd maybe crack the. I'll give him top five.
Hey,
How
Yeah,
hype
he's
was that flying
second of all
goalie
time.
hit where he
Whatever.
was like,
Actually, no, he's the second best defenseman of all time. Nick Lidstrom's better, but anyway.
so if that's pretty much sounds like we've wrapped up the hockey thing. We'll switch over to baseball and then go football. So both the teams in New York have been doing awesome. This is, I think, the first time in a really long
Mets have
time.
had a lot. I
it's
think
a
Alonso
fat
went down
L
to
tonight
Yankees,
though.
Yeah, they did. But
Yeah, they lost to the Twins. Yankees.
But I think this is the first time in a really long time that the Yankees and Mets have both had the best records in their league.
It had to be since like 2000, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Subway Series, maybe. And we'll have to get some Mets fans on here at some point. But going with the Yankees, something we didn't touch on last time because we were like kind of riled up, kind of forgot. We didn't touch on the pitching, which is a shame because although Nestor got roughed up today, I talked about Nestor in the first episode, but the pitching over the 6 games before this was ridiculous. They had 2 guys take a perfect game into the 7th inning. Cole was one of them, and then I think it was Talion, James, right?
Yeah, Camo, yeah.
Yeah, that took perfect game into the 8th. They just split 2 games with the Twins. There's really not much to say more about the Yankees. Like, yeah, they took an L tonight. Like, whatever. Oh, we're 14-16. Like, oh, my heart. Like, I'm so rattled. We weren't going to go undefeated the rest of the season. It's always tough to get blown out, and you would have liked to, guarantee a win in the series. But I'm not really taking much. Like, Kurt was somewhat right in the fact that Nestor wasn't going to have a 1.5 ERA heading into the All-Star break. So it is what it is. Nestor gets roughed up by the Twins tonight. We still have a chance to win the series. Rah, how you feeling about the Yankees?
Great. I mean, I think that, we've been the best team in baseball. We've continued to be. Really not really a lot to say besides that.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the pitching. How
it's
crazy. No pitcher that the Yankees have has an over 4 ERA, which is completely ridiculous. We will probably have a wider trade deadline episode, but I want to ask you this, Rah. Yeah. I've been thinking about it. Yes, it would be really nice to get Benintendi. Yes, it would be really nice to get Soto. But part of me wants the Yankees to just the chemistry in the clubhouse seems like an all-time high. You see, even in the games where Chapman struggled, the teams pick him up. They give him, player of the game. It seems like a unique group. It seems like a group, and yes, you always want to get better. But I think what we should do is we should consult with Aaron Judge, the team leaders, on every move we make to assess the impact on the clubhouse. Because I think that going forward, it's very underrated that like clubhouse chemistry can really impact a team, even in a sport as individualistic as baseball. But obviously, getting Benintendi, I'm not going to complain. What do you think about that whole thing?
I think, I see what you're saying, but at the end of the day, like, it's sort of just, that's not really like the Yankee way. The Yankee way is just always never be satisfied and hit the market. And I think everybody knows that when you play for the Yankees, that like you're always just gonna like they're always gonna like try and make moves. Really, that's sort of like what you have when you play as, so they've all accepted that like this group might not be together. They're always like, all right, if we get him, but so yeah, I don't really think would affect them if they made a move for Benintendi.
Yeah, Benintendi. I mean, imagine like letting him go. But even going back to that, I think he's probably going to be the prize, him and Soto, because the Royals are very well out of it. Speaking of, a team that formerly employed Benintendi before inexplicably letting him go, Kurt, what do you think about your Red Sox?
Well, I actually have a good bit to say. First of all, gained a fat game on the Yankees tonight. Big 1-0 victory. And do you know who the second best group of starting pitchers in the league has been so far? The Boston Red Sox. The bullpen has had its struggles, but the starters have been lights out. And that's obviously without Chris Sale, who is hopefully going to be back pretty soon. I've heard he's been throwing a couple of bullpens now. He is going to be on rehab assignment fairly soon, based on what I've heard. Big dub against the Angels, who just keep losing. It seems like Bobby Dahlbeck, I don't want to speak too soon, but he's waking up a little bit. Last couple of games, he's had a couple of big hits, a few in really important situations, a few big RBIs. Let's see, what else? The bullpen has obviously been the biggest weakness for the team because, like I said, basically second best starting pitching in baseball and most runs in baseball. So obviously something's off there, and it's the bullpen. But I think we're finding some stability there finally. We have a guy in Max Strom who's been really good this season. Below a 2 ERA still, I'm pretty sure. He's been working a lot of the closing for us. And now we have Tanner Houck there since we put Whitlock in the starting lineup. And he's been pretty lights out. I think he'll take the closer role at some point. Then circling back to the Benintendi thing. First of all, I'd just like to say I would kill myself live on pod if he goes to the Yankees. But second of all, maybe you guys disagree, but I don't think that trade was awful for the Red Sox. I think Benintendi has been producing better than anyone they got back, but Franchy Cordero was one of the main ones. And like I said last pod, he had a shit year last year, but he's up and ready this season. He's had a lot of timely hits. He's getting the batting average way up there. He's seeing balls and strikes much better than last year. It was a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure you guys saw he hit a walk-off grand slam, which still sticks in my head. But then you also have a guy in Josh Winkowski, who we got in that trade, who has been lighting it up in the minors. He had a bit of a shoddy debut with the Red Sox, but he's still young. And I really do not think that trade looks terrible for the Red Sox. I'm not saying that if I would go back, I would necessarily do it again, but I think it is not as slanted as some may think.
Yeah. It will be very interesting to see where, like, if there was one person I could, like, shove all my chips in, he's going to get traded at the trade deadline, it's probably Benintendi, just because he's top 10 in average, and the Royals are so bad. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. But, pointing out how there are people that they got back from that have been stepping up. It makes the trade look a little more balanced, but I don't know. I'm still as a Yankee fan, like I do not miss having to face Benintendi. Like that's for sure. I do miss Chris Sale starting versus us. I'm very happy that he's on the way back because that's an easy dub whenever he takes the mound versus the Yanks show. Man.
Well, unless it's against Garrett Cole. I mean,
no. It's Eovaldi that we're scared of versus Cole. If Sale had started that wild card game, it would have been 10-9 Yankees.
Oh, come on, no. We're reliving the past now. I mean, I'm pretty sure we won that game.
Because Eovaldi started, man. That's why he knows us, man. Eovaldi.
I think it was more to do with the Yankees just being trash and the Red Sox being a much better franchise.
Well, all we have to say is, despite, what is a cute little 7-game win streak for the Red Sox, man. Like, the fact that your longest win streak of the season only gained a single game on us, because 6-1, like that's what we do this year. Like that's nothing. Like we're gonna win tomorrow and take 2 or 3 from a division leader in the Twins, and then we're gonna just keep rolling. And like when we play you, like they backloaded Yankees Red Sox, so I feel like the MLB, they wanted to keep Red Sox fans invested. So they didn't want to schedule too many games against the Yankees early because we knocked them out.
Stop it. Can we talk about last year early? When we beat you in 12 straight?
But then they're backloading it. So we'll knock them back to reality in July. I'm not worried about that.
That's going to be our chance to run it back in the standings.
Yeah, but you would need to sweep us to run it back in the standings. That's just not happening. We have the best player in the world.
There's still a lot of season to go. We're just chipping away, baby. I
will say the Red Sox, they have somewhat turned it around. They are on my radar now. But we can turn actually, Rah, we didn't touch on we touched on this last episode. Aaron Judge is the best hitter in the world at the moment, and nobody can deny it. This man hits a home run every game. I know you're gonna shake your head, but you can't deny that like Trout's going 0 for whatever. I'm not saying that career-wise he's better, but right now there is no one in the MLB that is hitting better than Aaron Judge. Rah, what do you have to say?
I mean, yeah, he's been a top 3 player in the game this year.
He's a top 1 player. He is the best player.
No, I agree with Rah. At best, top 3. Probably closer to top 5, top 10,
Listen, at least we're moving the Sox fans, because after last year, those thick skulls were saying that Judge wasn't even a top 10 player. Of course, he came out and shut him up. So Judge he's still gonna win MVP. Giancarlo came back, and of course, what I said last episode, where we would be number 1 in runs scored if we had Giancarlo. His first game back, he hits a home run. So of course, that kind of just proves my point. That the Red Sox just prey on our injuries to passes and run scores. Of course. It is good to point out that despite this win streak the Red Sox have had, they may have gotten the wild card. They are still double-digit games back in the division, which, of course, the Yankees were double-digit backs. They were double-digit backs around this time last year, maybe even later in the season, because the Yankees' 13-game win streak, I think, was in July last year. So there is still a lot of season left. I just don't see this team going on a huge losing streak. They just seem to respond when it's given me those 2018 Red Sox vibes. They just find ways to win games.
They never see it coming, man. And that's what makes it so enjoyable when it does happen.
Well, we will see if that happens. You can keep denying reality all you want. We're going to the NFL now.
No, we aren't, Bummy. I got two more things I want to address once again.
All right,
First of all, I wanted to ask you guys' thoughts on there being currently 4 AL East teams in the playoffs.
Oh, I mean that's even last year. Like, if they had run this formula, this playoff formula last year, the Blue Jays would have made it. And going into the year, we all thought that that's what a possibility that could happen. So I'm not really that surprised. I don't have that much to say, just because, like, we all knew that the AL East was the best division in baseball, and we all knew that there were 4 potential playoff teams, and the Rays, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Red Sox. Unfortunately, the Orioles kind of got the short end of the stick because they are rebuilding and they've got to play each of those teams 18 times. But
I find it personally incredible that can even happen, really, because you don't see that in other sports. I feel like you never see like 3 or 4 teams from the same division, because usually, they prey on each other's downfall. And if one team is doing well, then the others won't do well because they play the other team so much.
yeah,
I just find it interesting.
yeah, Rah, what do you think about the AL East?
It's a dogfight. It's a war zone. And they got the Blue Jays got better. And all those 4 teams, if they could make the playoffs, could make a deep playoff run. There's legit 4 teams that you look at, and no other division in baseball has that. So nothing's every AL East matchup just seems to matter more than other divisions. Must watch.
Yeah, I mean, I like, it's not that it's not incredible. I share your sentiment on that. It's just that it's it's not even just us as fans of teams in that division. It's around the league. Everyone knew, okay, the AL East is going to be an absolute dogfight. So it's kind of what I expected going into the season. And honestly, I am surprised though, because usually when you have one team, or usually when you have 4, in a division like that, let's say the AFC West in the NFL, right? Usually one of those teams that everyone is hyping up is going to fall below expectations. But so far, these teams, like the Blue Jays went through a slump, the Red Sox went through a massive slump, but they all have rebounded. So that it's surprising that each team has lived up to their preseason expectations. But if you're going to ask, am I surprised? Am I shocked? The answer is no, because I mean, these were just, you could make a case. Besides the Astros, we have 4 of the top 5 teams in the AL in that division. Maybe you sneak Minnesota in there. But Minnesota on paper, they need more pitching. I don't know. So it's going to be a dogfight. And yeah, you're right. Right now, I was looking at that this morning. It was crazy. I mean, obviously, you don't need to check the division leader because we've got that wrapped up. But, these other teams fighting for the wild card spot, it's 3. It's Toronto, the Rays, and the Red Sox. It's crazy, but I'm just going to repeat again that I'm not surprised that it's that way.
Okay, well, I mean, that feels like a good ending point for that. But I had one last thing to quickly bring up. And that was just to real quickly slander the former Yankees manager, Joe Girardi, who absolutely put on a clinic of how not to coach a team with the Phillies. And since he's been fired, I mean, obviously a pretty small sample size, but they have been red hot.
Yeah, I want to, the Phillies, it's not looking good for old Joe. I'm personally a Joe. I don't think one of the firing of Joe Girardi might be the decision that, as a Yankee fan, I am most like I didn't get it at the time because at that time the Yankees weren't expected to go anywhere. They did. A lot of people said they were playing for Joe. But looking at how he's handled the Phillies in a roster where he was handed the fifth highest payroll, there's not a lot to defend, especially since last year was really disappointing. I'm not a huge fan of firing managers within a season. And I actually have I have something to say. I'll group them together after you guys go about the Angels firing Joe Madden and the Rays thing that we talked about before. But Rah, what do you have to say about what do you think about the Phillies and Joe Girardi?
I mean, he was just bad, like, as a manager. He had no idea how to manage them. Like, a lot of, like, the flaws that he sort of was with the Yankees, it really came out to be in Philadelphia since they weren't winning as much consistently. And he just didn't really handle the press that well. It just wasn't a good fit. It was clear that he had to go. And really that's it. There's really not a lot really to say. I think Bryce Harper could still win 2 MVPs in Philly, which would be she has a real shot of winning. But yeah.
Is it safe for me to say though that Joe Girardi is the worst manager in baseball history?
No.
He
has a World
He
Series.
still won a World Series.
A lucky ass World Series.
Yeah.
And he still made it farther than that bummy ass Red Sox team in 2017. Listen, I'm gonna go okay. I understand the Angels are on this big losing streak, but I don't think it was the best. The one, Joe Madden has a proven track record. We know it in the AL East, but actually, going back on that, because the Rays they kept raying without Joe Madden. Kevin Cash came in, and they're still being the Rays. So there is that. But I feel like as a player, if you're on the midst of a losing streak, and then they fire your coach, that's just the front office has just completely lost control. They don't know what they're doing. And it kind of is you want to have faith in your team and faith in your manager through a losing streak. And I understand it's a 12-game losing streak, but I don't think it was the best decision and the best message to send to the players, because at the end of the day, it is only June and they still are a game or there's 3 games under 500. They could still easily make the playoffs if they turn it around. And I feel like you've got to kind of tough out the long losing streaks of a season. And again, yes, this losing streak is something crazy, but I don't think it's gonna help at this point to do it. I feel like Joe Madden, one, he's a good leader, and it's a case of as a player, if you see the manager get fired during a long losing streak, you're thinking, what am I next? When am I going to get traded? When am I going to get sent up? And in the middle of a season, I don't think that's the best 5 to send. And I quickly want to talk about the Rays. Not, there are a couple of Rays players, I think it was 5 of them, that did not wear the Pride logo. And listen, I've seen a lot of comments from even, gay individuals that they don't care, right? The Pride thing was something they adopted. It's a resistance logo even. So corporations and teams and players taking it up might not be, they don't really care. But I think when you're talking about sports, and there are a lot of Latin American players in the country that they stand for the anthem. They put on that camouflage flag, and they don't want to. And if you think that every player in the MLB, I'm just gonna say it, if you think that every player in the MLB, sits there and really puts their hand on their heart and really, God bless America, you're just an idiot. There are obviously a lot of players that don't, and there are a lot of people you see it on comments, from both of our favorite teams on, you're shoving this down our throat. No, what gets shoved down the throat is the blind patriotism. That's what gets shoved down our throat more than anything. Pride does not get shoved down the throat. And let's see the same reaction right? We saw it happen with Kaepernick. Kaepernick is still, and we can talk about this with football, but no matter if they let him back in the league or not, they still ruined his career just for doing basically what these players are doing. So I just wanted to say that, and how I think it's just very hypocritical, and it makes me angry, even though, yeah, those players have a right to their opinion, but at the end of the day, a lot of players have put a lot of things on their jerseys that they don't agree with. So I'll swing it back to you guys for that.
I think that was a very good speech. And I could not agree more. And honestly, to me, I don't care about those people's opinions because I think it's honestly like who is it offending to put a pride flag on your sleeve?
Yeah,
it's literally
exactly.
it's like this tiny little symbol on your sleeve that is just supposed to, show appreciation to those people out there who, are, I guess, slightly different from you. But I feel like, you're absolutely right about the patriotism too. You don't see anyone having a problem with putting camo on, or putting a baseball baseball for veterans, or whatever they put on their hats. I don't really get it. Like, I think, it's the 21st century. Like, why should anyone have a problem with showing appreciation for other people who are slightly different than ourselves?
Right. Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
You guys touched on it. I think it's sort of just like, they do have the right to their opinion. So if they really didn't want to, I guess. But I think it's just still like, it's still kind of like just, what you said about the whole patriotism thing. I agree 100% with everything you guys have said. So
Yeah. Also, a brief point just popped in my head about it's not even that they're different; it's that they are currently under assault, and we won't get too much into it, but the LGBT community is always constantly under assault. So standing with them is even much more important than standing with a community that already has the protection. But anyway, so I think it's time to move on to football. We can touch on the main stories coming out of the NFL, which is the Deshaun Watson case. There's not even it's not that it's not important. It's just that the evidence just keeps piling on. Deshaun Watson, whatever the court system rules, whatever, you don't need 66 different massage therapists.
not at all.
Yeah, I checked the stats on that. That came out to about one a week for him.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck needs that? And if you're defending him, I'm sorry, but you need to take a good hard look at the facts.
Yeah.
And
Honestly, it's just like, I don't know, why? Why? Because he can throw a football well? I don't understand. Because it's just the thing about the Browns is if you're a fan of the Browns, right, which we know Browns, I feel like this is honestly more of a harder thing to get by than just the period when they were 1-15 or 0-16, because everybody knew they were lying when they were we're doing our due diligence. You knew it was bullshit then, and you really knew it's bullshit now, and it's almost like a spit in the face of all those fans who are good people that have to. They just didn't care. They knew it was happening. They didn't care. They gave him $230 million. If you know why, it's because he had to pay off all the accusers. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. I'm pretending that it wasn't. They need to face the music. The Browns need to face the music for this. This is their problem. They can't hide it any longer. They can't hide. They've been hiding. They've been cowering, but they can't do it now. They need to own up to it. That's what I think.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a hot take, but Deshaun needs to be barred from the league. The Browns front office And honestly, the Texans front office from a while ago should face some of the music for this. I mean, you literally hear his lawyer coming out now and basically saying that, you know, allegedly this happened, but even if it happened, you know, it's not technically illegal. Like, bro, bro,
Yeah,
I don't
that's.
have more to say. It's just
I mean,
embarrassing.
and keeping in mind too that Deshaun Watson, he's hiring the best lawyers that money can buy, and even they can't. It's not like he's just hiring the public defendant that they give, everybody. This dude is hiring the best lawyers that money can buy, and they can't come up with anything that's even remotely besides, oh, I guess that isn't illegal. I mean, you read that New York Times case, the New York Times piece, some of the massage therapy, they left the room crying and even saying they did it for money. And we could even go, I don't really want to go dig too deep. It's for another time, that the whole, believing women thing. I mean, we're always going to stand with sexual assault victims and believe women on this podcast 100%. And we don't feel the need to go into depth about why we believe that, because just look at the facts. Look at how America is structured. Look at how men set up everything in this country. It is what it is. Now to a slightly more, lighthearted topic. The Jaguars. We decided to do this thing where we will discuss heading into the NFL season. I figured it's about 90-ish days. And we'll probably do a pod once every, give or take 3 days. And if we have to, we can do multiple teams. But, go through all the teams, win totals from worst record to best record from last year. And today, the worst record belongs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They finished the season. What did they finish last year? 2 wins or 3?
I think they had 3, right?
Yeah. Whatever it was the worst. They snatched it from the Lions. They snatched it. No, they was definitely either 3 or 2. The Lions went on a little run there. It might have been 2. I think they might.
Right. I'm just gonna touch this. I don't get the Sun Lions fight that people are. I get they're gonna be better, but people are like, oh, they could be a dark horse. It's no, they still aren't a good football team. They'll be competitive, but I keep hearing about them they're oh, they don't sleep on the Lions. Just they're the Lions. Of course, it's sleeping on them. So they could be otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. I
They're
think
gonna be that good.
more I think the Lions are the 2 picks, so we'll get into them a little more next episode. But the Jags, personally, I've been higher on the Jags, but I'll swing it over to Kirk. Kirk, I know you had some talking points in the Jags, so what do you have to say about the 6.5 is their win total on FanDuel?
6.5. I think that's a pretty good line for them, honestly, because I agree with you. I think they did improve a lot. And I think Lawrence definitely takes a step forward in his second year. I think you can kind of throw the whole rookie year out the window, as a matter of fact, because you look at the supporting cast around him. You look at
the coach
Meyer as his coach, yeah, and it's just he couldn't have been put in a worse situation. I think despite some bad signings that they made, those bad signings still made them better as a whole. Christian Kirk is still better than probably anyone they had last year. That being said, 6.5, I think I'm still leaning towards under. I know this is one of Kieran's kind of trendy picks, and I was on board for a while, but now that I'm thinking about it, I see them right around 5 or 6 wins. I think they improve on last year, but they still have a ways to go.
They might have 4 in the AFC this year. To be honest, you gotta hear how good the AFC is, but not the AFC South. So majority of their wins, it's sort of gonna be I don't know, the Giants from 2 years ago, where they could just be like people because they got the majority of their wins
It's
in
not
the
a bad
back division.
comparison at all, actually.
Really?
No, actually, I don't think that's a bad. I hadn't thought about that, but that's really not a bad comparison because they're in a bad division. You said the NFC didn't really improve that offseason, but they're in a bad division. They've got a second year QB.
That one's just a bad division.
Yeah,
And they were on
the reason
every
one,
week,
I
too,
really, yeah, I really think that Lawrence is going to take. Like, I still have a lot of faith in Trevor Lawrence. I think that I agree.
Yeah, you gotta lower that like generational thing expectations down because I don't think he's ever gonna be that. But I think he could be like a top 15 to 10 guy in the NFL, definitely.
I think he could still easily be top 10, top 5. You know,
Yeah, no,
like I said, the situation, I'll swing it over to Kieran in just a second, but the situation was just god awful. And I think that doesn't take away from his talent. You've seen a lot of guys in their rookie years come out and kind of flop and then bounce back in their second or third year. So,
yeah, I mean, I know that like we've all heard this before. Peyton Manning did lead the league in picks his rookie season. Not that like I'm saying T-Law is going to be Peyton Manning, but I'm also not hitting the panic button on him at all. I think he's going to take a step forward. I mean, this is still a guy who beat Nick Saban, not only just beat him, beat his ass as a freshman in college. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a guy that, and if you look at the tape, you look at, did he make some bad decisions? Yes, but was he rushed by a bad team? Also, he also made some of the best throws I've ever seen from a rookie. He also beat the Bills. Yeah, he only had to score like 14 points or whatever, but he still beat the Bills his rookie season. And I think T-Law takes a really big step forward. I think that he's going to honestly shut a lot of the doubters up. And again, like what Kurt said, he took like he said like kind of like my main point was that like yes, was the Christian Kirk contract atrocious? Yes. Did it make them better? Yes. They also got Brandon Sheriff, which I think a lot of people are sleeping on from Washington, who they play. They also play Washington week 1. So I think that's a very winnable game for them. And I think like once you start 1-0, that can, 0-1, 1-0, that can change the whole dynamic of a season. But I just think that they had a really aggressive free agency. I will say that their draft really soured it a little bit for me. I'm still going to lean, over just because I've had this for a while. But
I'm just curious. Do you remember who did they take in the first round?
They took Walker at 1.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah, they took Walker at 1, and that was a big reach.
And then they took Devin Lloyd, right?
No. Yeah, it's
later in the first. That's who I couldn't think of at first. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, getting Lloyd, like, again, it kind of goes back to, like, I didn't like their draft. Like, I really didn't like taking Walker at 1. I really thought there were better people. Yeah, they took Lloyd, and then at 65, they got an interior offensive lineman. So
does it stay?
Who they got at 65? They got Luke Fortner out of Kentucky. This is round 3. They didn't have a second round pick, but went back to that. Like, I thought that they really could have used, especially in the position that they were in. Even I would have liked them taking Thibodeau, especially Hutchinson, over Walker. Devin Lloyd he's a really good talent, and to get him at 20 is really good. I still would have liked a position of higher value for them, especially since they have so much need. So I really didn't like their draft. So the draft definitely sours it. I'm definitely a little bit more nervous, but I just think the schedule and that they were aggressive. I think that there's a culture change there, and I think 7-10. I'm gonna lean that way, even though, and again, Devin Lloyd's a playmaker. Like, don't get me wrong. I think he'll make an impact. he might even, make he's a guy that is so fast at the linebacker position. He could, another guy, maybe last year's linebacker it's not a scoop and score if he picks up a fumble. With Devin Lloyd, it is. But I'm a lot closer to that than I was because I really thought they fumbled the draft, and it reminded me that they're still the Jaguars. But I'm still gonna hit the over just because I think that schedule and playing in the AFC South too, where the Texans, they had a great draft. They're still the Texans. The Titans got worse, and the Colts. No team in that division scares me. They could go 3-3, even 4-2 in that division. And then
The Colts, I think,
mind
actually.
the Colts though. I don't mind what the Colts did.
Yeah,
I think the
like,
Colts got better than they were last season.
Yeah,
and
like
they
Matt
could
Ryan,
legitimately
Jason
be
Davis.
somewhat of a threat in the AFC.
Yeah, no, the Colts are definitely the favorite in that division. But I think we can all, because they have the best offensive line in football, which is why when I don't think the Commanders are really going to be that much better at all, because it's like, oh, Wentz has protection now. He did in Indianapolis, and he still cost him the season. But anyway,
Rod, did you give us over or under?
under. I think under still. I still think the Jaguars are like a bottom tier AFC team, especially with the way the conference has gotten better. Yeah, I still think they're they're not going to be. They're probably not the number one draft pick, but I think they'll be top 5 for sure.
Yeah, and I still think the Titans, while they did get worse, are still definitely marginally better. Like a good marginally better.
And you have to remember too, Derek against the Jaguars too. He always Derek's gonna have that 200-yard game. I'm if you do end up taking the over on the Jaguars, you're praying for a split against the Titans. So that one of the games Derek's gonna go for 200. You just hope that you kind of limit him the other game. But like I said, I'm still gonna be the one to stick my neck out and go over. But definitely the draft, they could have really sealed it for me. It could have been my most confident bet. They did, and they showed how they blew their 2017 team. That core that they had, how they blew that was incompetent management. Not taking a Lamar Jackson when they could have, and they could have added Lamar Jackson to that core. But you know what? This isn't. This is probably too painful for Jaguars fans to hear. So another thing, a quick thing with the Knicks is that there are rumors that the Knicks are looking to trade up in this draft, which I would really like. There's a spot trading up to 4. There have been some rumors that the Knicks are really interested in Jaden Ivey.
I mean, that'd be great. I think Ivey's going to be very good, I think. He's been NBA ready for a year now.
If you could
if
trade
we
up
get Ivy with the core we have, the Knicks are not that far off from, I think, playoffs. Play-in, I think, is very reasonable. I think there's no reason to think, I think this draft's going to be well. I think I have faith in Leon Rose. But also, there's a chance of Donovan. Now, Quinn Snyder got fired.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely high on Ivy too. I'm still not really sure about the Donovan Mitchell rumors. I think
here's the thing.
We're gonna need to wait for the offseason to roll on to get more clarity.
He was at Game 7 during the Ranger Penguins game, and he was at the Mets game before. He's just been around the city.
So maybe he's going to Brooklyn, baby.
Oof.
No, but he was at the Garden though. He had this story where he was he told Panarin to shoot the puck, and he did, and it went in. That has to be some destiny thing, right?
Donovan would make, but I think it's important to still tamper the expectations. Maybe Donovan goes. I do think that he's definitely more realistic than past. Getting LeBron.
Yeah.
But it's still. Still the Knicks.
I think we're gonna wrap up in a second here, but circle back to the Jaden Ivey thing. I think that would be a really big pickup for the Knicks. I'm a big
Really big.
buyer
Really
on
big. He instantly
Ivy.
start. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm just curious,
But Thibodeau would just have to.
what do you guys think you would have to give up to get all the way up there? Because I see Ivy as probably a top 5 guy.
Yeah, no, there's something we would have to trade up to 4. I mean, we'd either future. I mean, I don't know if it would be worth giving up future draft picks in next year's draft class to get Ivy, though, just because next year's draft class is going to be historic because it's going to be high schoolers and first year freshmen. So I'm not sure. I mean, we'd probably have to give up like maybe IQ, OB, like those guys. Maybe even.
I don't want to give up IQ and OB. I think those guys have to stay together. I think it's worth it.
I looked at like Ivy and Ja worked with the same people.
You're gonna have to give up some serious stuff to move from 11 to 4.
Yeah.
Thing like IQ, OB, maybe even Julie. Would you give up? I think it's just like I'd have to like prepare
if they wanted Julius, yeah. I mean, I think sort of we saw like
I could see that honestly.
Yeah,
if the other team was open to it,
Julius
trading the 11 and Julius for the 4 and maybe a player of lesser value.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, pretty much anyone besides RJ. RJ is untouchable.
Yeah, like getting Ivy just to facilitate everything. The Knicks haven't had a point guard in like pretty much all. Like had Jason Kidd that 1 year, but this isn't a
in Linsanity.
Yeah, like for like 2 weeks. So it was just fun, you know. The Linsanity, it's coming up on. It already has been 10 years, which is pretty crazy to think about. But it is currently 1:37 a.m. Eastern time. So I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 3. Definitely the smoothest episode I'd say so far. Thanks everyone that eventually, tunes in. This should be up the morning after the games. I'll make sure to upload it quickly.
Just a quick plug before we go. Coming up in the future, we're going to get more into fantasy football too. I wanted to ask a couple of questions, but we'll push that to the next pod. And hopefully sometime soon in the future, we're going to get a few guests on. And we're also going to get into a mock draft or 2 on the pod as well. So that should be a blast.
For sure. Yeah, it's not going to be all like for fantasy and for gambling. We'll definitely put our heads together more than going at each other, which definitely for, baseball, we'll definitely go at each other more. But for football, we'll more be on the same page. But anyway, I'm going to sign off. You boys, hit whatever you want to.
Yes, sir. It was a pleasure, as always, to hang with you winners on this beautiful night.
Yes, sir.
All right. See you, boys.